Welcome back to our channel 217 Prince White. The chapter begins. Baru's voice emerged from the depths of the shadows, tinged with reverence and anticipation. Young monarch, before him stood Suho, his frame bathed in the pale glow of battle, tension rising in the air like a storm about to break. Despite facing insurmountable trials, again and again, the young monarch had never faltered. Never once had he chosen retreat. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, he pressed forward. Now, with sword clenched and energy swirling around him, Suho stared down the possessed enemy. The battlefield was silent for a fleeting moment, a quiet before the eruption of chaos. Baru hovered at his side, watching the boy who now stood in his father's shadow. Despite Suho's fragile appearance, the echo of the monarch resonated within him, an undeniable overlap of the present and the legacy left behind. In the background, their eyes narrowing in realization. The enemy's core wasn't its host, it was the weapon. The sword itself pulsed with dark energy, fused with the creature's arm. That guy's true form is the sword. If we sever it from the host, he'll be paralyzed. Suho nodded once. That's right. Before another word could be spoken, a feral growl sliced through the air. From the rubble, a twisted, snarling face rose, a hunter, possessed and transformed. Its eyes burned with malevolent yellow light as it charged with blistering speed, monstrous jaws opening wide. But Suho's shadows were already in motion. They lunged, wolves born of darkness, fangs gleaming with spectral light. They struck with savage precision, closing the distance on the possessed hunter, surrounding it in a blur of movement. And then, impact. A shadow wolf collided with terrifying force, fangs bared as it clamped down with unrelenting ferocity. The battle had begun. Suho marveled. It really did return when infused with mana. These shadow soldiers, they weren't just mindless puppets. They were spiritual echoes, animated by energy and bound by loyalty. Baru confirmed what Suho already sensed. As long as mana flowed, they could rise again and again. Infinite endurance. Undying loyalty. With that realization, the battle reignited. The red-named enemy lashed out violently, and Suho's shadow wolves answered in kind. Fangs bared, eyes glowing, they launched a coordinated counterattack. A furious clash of red energy and dark ether erupted as claws slashed and teeth sank deep. The enemy's sword danced in vicious arcs, but so did the shadows. From the edge of the battlefield, Suho's expression sharpened. Yet the shadow soldiers' power still seemed dulled. It wasn't their fault, it was his. His mana was too weak, his strength still blossoming. They were only as strong as their master allowed them to be. And then, the air froze. Suho's pupils narrowed, a chill racing down his spine. How? The enemy growled, his voice thick with disbelief and venom. How can an insignificant being like you wield the power of the Shadow Monarch? The accusation thundered through the battlefield, heavier than any sword. Suho's breath caught. What? You can talk? Suho asked, startled. The shadow sneered. To belittle the one who carries the same bloodline as the monarch. You dare mock his heir. The ground trembled beneath their feet. The knight's sword flared. The Shadow Monarch's bloodline. To think I'd meet you here. Fury twisted the knight's face as he roared, the sworn enemy of the Fang monarch. A monstrous lunge followed, the enemy's blade flashing towards Suho's position like a comet of destruction. The air split in its wake. Suho's body tensed, but he didn't retreat. Instead, a grin curved on his lips. Let's start with a bit of reconnaissance. He shot forward with effortless grace. Suho's strike was quick, his blade testing probing. Just as expected from a red name, Suho thought grimly. He can swat away these attacks like they're nothing. His feet skidded back across the frost-covered floor, eyes glinting with sharp resolve. In that case, he bent low, gathering momentum. I'll overwhelm him with numbers. With a sweeping command, his shadows burst from the ground in synchronized fury, surrounding the knight from all sides. Blades rained down. Roars filled the arena. The Red Knight slashed wildly, red arcs dancing across the air in brutal spirals. A storm had begun. This is the aptitude for the ruler's authority he's wielded since infancy, a power he instinctively learned to control, enhancing his combat reach beyond physical bounds. But even so, a streak of red light slashed across the battlefield with savage force, steel grinding against steel as the enemy swung with relentless brutality. Suho narrowly deflected the blow, his footing shifting across fractured stone. His eyes locked forward, unshaken. The red-named warrior roared, leaping again, his sword screeching through the air, each strike a force of destruction. Suho's breaths quickened. His body moved on instinct, ducking and sliding, but even as he dodged, the gaps were closing. He clenched his jaw. This guy is different. The goblin weapons strike all at once. A coordinated rain of metal, fury, and killing intent from every angle. At this rate, Suho's mind raced. His legs bent, shoulders tensed as he threw himself back again, narrowly escaping another devastating arc of the enemy's blade. I have no means to counter. One hit, and it's over. The burden he inherited. If this drags on, my chances of winning drop with every second. His heartbeat surged. He couldn't let this become a battle of endurance. He had to end it decisively. The knight withstood it easily. The beast's voice thundered, its snarl cutting through the battlefield like a serrated blade. With eyes glowing a venomous yellow and veins bulging with frenzy, it roared, "Will you keep running away like a coward?" The insult spat from his jagged mouth wasn't just directed at Suho, it clawed at something far deeper. "I guess the Shadow Monarch is also a coward," the creature hissed, hiding behind his shadow soldiers. But that last remark hit a nerve. Suho's brow twitched. His eyes sharpened into a cold glare as the ghost of a smirk twisted on his lips. His fingers flexed, shadow energy crackling at his fingertips. "Whoa, he muttered, his expression darkening. "Bringing up someone's parents is against the rules, you know." Despite the bravado, a heavy truth pressed against Suho's chest. Even with such deliberate provocation, his legs wouldn't budge. The enemy's presence wasn't just overwhelming, it was suffocating. His mind screamed for him to charge, but his instincts screamed louder, "Stay back." He watched from a distance as the red blade of his foe tore effortlessly through the ruined earth, scattering shadows and shattering air itself. The difference in power was stark, terrifying. "Damn it, if only I had more power," Baru's voice broke the haze. "Baru, you know," Suho began, his voice low as he tried to piece together the confusion gnawing at him. "If my seal is broken, why hasn't the power I had when climbing the tower returned?" Baru's glowing eyes locked on Suho with solemn understanding. The young monarch's power was sealed when he was an infant. It's best to think of it as regaining the talent from that time. An image formed in Suho's mind, the child he once was, the fragmented echoes of his strength resurfacing piece by piece. "With that power," Baru continued, "you might be able to stand against Iterum." But that place was neither dream nor reality. It was a test, a crucible to see if the young monarch could wield the talent. Suho's gaze dropped, a weight settling in his chest as realization dawned. That strength was always meant to fade, regardless of the outcome. Baru's words rang heavy. So it was really just a game. After all, Baru's tone deepened. The experience in the tower was by no means meaningless. Please remember the sensation and fighting spirit from that time. And he did. Like a spark reigniting an old flame, the memory of that raw, instinctive combat began flooding back. Suho's muscles remembered. His breath synchronized with that rhythm. "I clearly remember the sensation from that time." His body ducked low, weaving between crimson strikes. He lunged forward without hesitation, throwing himself into a swift barrage of close-quarters combat. "I mainly fought in a hand-to-hand style in the tower," he recalled, shifting his posture mid-leap. If only he had gauntlets now. If only he could bring that brutal, close-range precision into this world. His eyes gleam with realization. Shadow soldiers, spiritual bodies. As long as there's mana, they recover endlessly. A glimmer of strategy sparks in his gaze. He recalls how Baru could reshape his very form. A revelation sharpens into clarity. If Baru could do it, then so can they. The corners of his mouth curl with purpose. "Arise." His voice, calm yet commanding, breathes life into the void again. More shadows climb from the abyss. Glowing eyes. From above, the red-named warrior scoffs, twisting midair as he prepares another strike. Another trick. He glares down at the formation rising before him, weapons braced, shield walls forming. Haven't you learned that such things don't work? But maybe he didn't need to wish. Maybe he just needed to remember how to fight like the warrior he once was. "I'll cut you down first." The furious roar of the red-named warrior reverberates across the broken battlefield as he lunges with savage force. But Suho stands firm. Behind him, the swirling aura of shadows rises like a tidal wave, pulsing with lethal intent. Darkness thickens, crackling like a storm on the verge of eruption. Dark tendrils exploded outward. From Suho's command, a storm of spiritual smoke erupted, shadows taking shape, rising like a tidal wave. One of them warped, transformed, then hardened into a weapon of battle. A pillar of crimson fury and shockwave burst upward. But Suho doesn't falter. But this time, it's different. This time, Suho isn't just buying time. This time, he's leading a war he didn't expect, was what loomed from the shadows beside Suho. Suho's eyes sharpened. In that instant, the pieces connected. Steel clashed. Steel Fong Leakin. Suho's voice cut through the air like the edge of a sword. It's living up to its name. What stood before him was no longer just a shadow soldier. It was a weapon. A creature transformed, forged into a gauntlet of war. Notification: the level of skill, shadow extraction has increased. Skill, shadow extraction LV. 2. Shape transformation, gauntlet. You can freely change the shape of the shadow soldier. With the new gauntlet fused to his arm, Suho burst forward, the power crackling through his veins. With this, close combat is enough. The earth shattered beneath his charge. A single strike, sharp, precise, collided into the goblin's defenses, sending out a shockwave of energy. Baru watched silently, wide-eyed. A shadow had become a weapon. Good heavens, he muttered in awe. To weaponize a shadow soldier, only the true shadow monarch, one who surpassed all, could manipulate shadows at will like this. Yet now, before him, the young monarch had crossed into uncharted power. He was no longer simply summoning. He was creating, forging his own path forward, not because someone taught him, but because no one ever did. And that was what made him terrifying. A monarch learning to command the unknown. The surge of electricity crackled through Suho's limbs as he hurled himself forward, gauntlet ablaze with piercing arcs of blue. His body moved with honed instinct, every motion fueled by memories of battles etched deep into his bones. The combat sense you've shown so far, the aptitude for the ruler's authority, the echoes of that judgment rang in his mind, but he had no time to dwell. Fong Leakin's massive claws slashed down, sweeping with sheer brute force. The beast's golden eyes flicked wide, realization dawning far too late as the transformed gauntlet, rippling with condensed mana, came barreling in. The exchange was brutal, blinding flashes, the thunderclap of impact, and the shockwave that tore through the battlefield. And even the utilization method of shadow authority. Suho pressed the advantage, lightning coursing down his arm as he drove a strike into Monster's abdomen. The feral beast howled in pain, crashing through debris and crumbling stone, body cratering against the shattered ground. Blood sprayed, muscles tore, and yet he rose again, trembling, eyes wild with fury. Suho floated above, his breath steady, gaze sharp. He didn't need a second chance. From above, he came down like divine judgment, the full weight of the Shadow Monarch's air in motion. The air trembled as jagged spikes of mana tore through the earth, erupting upward like the jaws of a beast. Their razor edges glinted under the pale blue light, converging in a violent surge that turned the battlefield into a labyrinth of destruction. A flash of steel. A blur of motion. Suho crashed through the chaos, his movements sharp, decisive, each strike guided by instinct, honed by fury. From above, his enemy met him with brutal force, claws and bloodlust gleaming. But the tide had shifted. The young monarch was no longer on the defensive. Each blow he traded now resonated with clarity. Sparks burst in rhythmic chaos as his black gauntlet, formed from shadow and steel, clashed with the monster. The very air screamed as their weapons collided. The gap between them narrowed, not just physically, but in power. A single name echoed in the mind of the observer, a silent whisper laced with awe. The young monarch was truly a prodigy. Suho stood over the fallen remnants of his opponent, his breathing calm but resolute. The glow of shadow energy slowly ebbed around him, and Baru floated by his side with his usual insectal composure. Despite the tension moments ago, the battle was over, its outcome definitive. I was worried because of the red name, Suho admitted, his voice thoughtful. But it wasn't at a level where it was unbeatable. His sharp gaze flicked toward the enemy's collapsed form, still smoldering with defeat. I even doubted the young monarch's victory for a moment. A quiet glance from Suho silenced him. Suho raised a brow. Where did that obviously transparent lie come from? Still, beneath the sarcasm, there was clarity in his eyes. I learned a new fighting technique in this battle. So it wasn't a bad harvest, was it? His tone was relaxed, but his body bore the light marks of a grueling trial, one that had left him stronger. Suho extended his armored hand, still cloaked in the sleek aura of shadow steel. A system prompt shimmered into existence, golden and glowing before him. Then shall we check the reward? He asked, already reaching forward. A soft chime echoed as the interface accepted his command. Quest completion reward has arrived. Would you like to check the reward? Check, he said firmly. Another chime. The following reward is prepared. Reward, runestone, storm slash. And then the system sealed the moment with a final prompt. You have learned skill, storm slash. As the information surged into his mind, Suho stood still, eyes narrowed as a new stream of power bloomed inside him. Skill, Storm/Level 1. Active skill. Required mana, 50. The power of swirling wind is imbued in the sword. Can attack multiple enemies simultaneously. The air around him shifted. His body vibrated faintly with newfound control. Wind curled upward in invisible streams, spiraling softly around his limbs. This skill, it's the reward I wanted the most. He breathed, and just as suddenly, he knew it was already his. I instinctively know how to use it. His lips curved into a quiet smile, eyes lighting up with anticipation. Let's give it a try. A dark pulse surged at his hand as his shadow swirled outward. Suho's body moved fluidly, beginning the invocation. Energy spiraled down his arm, snapping the ground beneath him into ripples of force. Let's see. A weapon. Across the battlefield, the blood-stained weapon of his enemy still lay embedded in the dirt, its edge battered, its glow dim. Yet it stood as a symbol of the battle's conclusion. A bitter voice echoed from the shadows. How humiliating. To think I'd be defeated by the bloodline of the Shadow Monarch. But even as the final blow seemed struck, a malevolent presence stirred within the battlefield's shadows. A crimson voice, twisted and seething, echoed from the broken remains of the steel Fong Liken's weapon. But it's not over yet. From the depths of shadow, a new danger awakened. Not flesh and blood, but the endless greed of mankind, incarnate in cursed steel. The fractured Fong of the beast pulsed with lingering malice, whispering a deadly temptation to Suho. Yes, the moment you pick me up, I'll devour your entire body. But Suho didn't flinch. Without hesitation, his hand closed around the cursed weapon, and in a sudden burst of red light, the Fong submitted. The energy warped, snapped, then fell into stillness. A new system notification bloomed before him. You have acquired item, Rockin's Fong. Suho's gaze fell on the dark blade resting in his hand, twisted, vicious, humming with barely restrained power. He studied its form with a faint grin. It certainly looks better than the goblin's weapons. But from the depths of that defeated consciousness came a final whisper of disbelief. A human who inherited the Fong monarch's authority and yet dares to control me? Suho raised the weapon with confidence. Then let's try out the skill. A system window unfolded beside him, laced in golden runes. Blessing, Great Shaman Candiaru's blessing. As long as Candiaru's blessing is with you, you will always enjoy a robust and healthy life. Continuous effect, longevity. You become immune to all diseases. Your base stamina rises, and your regeneration rate increases exponentially during sleep. Suho's aura flared. Blue lightning crackled at his back as he lifted the new blade, its tip glinting under the frozen sky. The moment arrived. With a single motion, he slashed the blade forward, and energy surged. Using skill, Storm Slash, the ground erupted. An explosive gale spun out from his blade, cutting the air like a hurricane made of razors. Stone splintered. Wind howled. The entire battlefield fractured beneath the sheer force of his new power. As dust and debris cleared, silence fell for a breath, broken only by the fading echoes of the storm left in his wake. The dust slowly begins to settle over the shattered battlefield. Suho stands in the debris, breathing heavily, drained from the immense power he had just unleashed. Glowing fragments of shadow energy ripple around his frame, reacting to his exhaustion. He lowers his gaze to his hand, noticing the aftereffects of the Storm Slash. It seems problematic that my mana is depleted after using it just once, he mutters, his voice calm but analytical. But I like the destructive power. His tone is matter of fact, but his eyes gleam with quiet satisfaction. Around him, shadows linger, flickering like loyal wraiths awaiting orders. The contrast is stark. The storm-like burst of mana he just released doesn't compare to the fluidity and control of the Shadow Authority. The reaction is so different from Shadow Extraction, he thinks. The Shadow Authority is thousands, no, tens of thousands of times more amazing. A soft groan breaks the silence. Nearby, Lim Dokyun stirs, lying amid the rubble. Suho turns, a slight smile forming as he approaches. Ah, brother, are you awake? He looks around at the ruined battlefield, then locks eyes with Suho, whose figure is now framed by dim light and scattered shadow energy. Suho, what on earth is this? Suho exhales lightly. It seems like the explanation will be long. Shall we talk as we go out? Behind them, the fallen corpses of monsters lay still. Lim Dokyeon, who had survived until now, lets out a whimper of terror and scrambles backward, eyes wide with horror. Outside, daylight welcomes them back. The cold metallic glow of the portal still hovers ominously in the distance, surrounded by onlookers and officials keeping their distance from the danger zone. Suho turns. I'll go check if there are more survivors in the dungeon. Okay. Without another word, Suho stepped forward, swallowed by the spiraling light of the portal once more. His figure vanished into the vortex, calm, resolute. The bridge beyond stood still, watching his return into danger. An E-rank awakened one with summoning skills, he murmurs in thought, disappearing beyond the dimensional veil once more. Even as the light of morning filtered through the leaves, doubt flickered behind the young man's eyes. The question gnawed at him, quiet but relentless. How had Suho grown so powerful, so fast? It was a trivial thought in the face of everything that had just occurred, and yet, he couldn't help but feel a tremor of awe. But now wasn't the time to dwell on it. Around them, survivors were rising to their feet, wounded, shaken, but alive. The chaos had ended, and in its place came murmurs of relief and confusion. Weapons were sheathed, questions whispered among comrades. Some clutched their ribs, others helped those who couldn't yet stand. In the midst of it all, an unassuming figure who had become their shield in the storm. What mattered most wasn't the mystery behind his strength. It was that Suho had saved them all. But the dungeon had not yet released its final breath. In a darkened corridor, the roar of feral hunger shattered the momentary calm. From the shadows, two massive steel-fanged lichens lunged forward, mouths agape, shrieking in primal fury. Their claws slashed through the air like blades. Suho moved with no hesitation, his body slicing through space like a dark comet. Shadows ignited beneath his feet as his blade tore through the first beast in a flash of light and fury. Another strike followed, sharp and precise, as the second lichen howled and crumbled under the force of his assault. A flicker of golden system light appeared before him. Notification, your level has increased. But there was no time to bask in that small triumph. Suho stood amid the carnage, surrounded by the corpses of beasts. His eyes burned with focus. There are still many wolf beasts left inside, he muttered, his voice low and unreadable. The shadow beside him chirped in response, its glowing eyes glancing toward the corridor depths. They are all my experience points. Can't miss out on that. Suho's expression tightened. His brow furrowed slightly as a different thought crept into his mind, something that didn't sit quite right. By the way, he furrowed his brow, the question slipping from his lips like a cold wind. Why did your attack power suddenly decrease? The sword pulsed faintly, and then, to his surprise, answered back with a cold, almost mocking voice. Humph. You dare to cooperate with the bloodline of the Shadow Monarch. Its eerie glow flickered as a notification illuminated before Suho's eyes, revealing the weapon's secrets. Item, Rocken's Fong. Acquisition difficulty? Type, sword attack power, plus 30, minus 5 stat obstruction. A sword made from the Fong of Rocken, the king of beasts. Rocken's spirit dwells within, and if possessed by someone of low rank, they might have their body taken over. Effect, contempt for the weak. Puts the designated target into a state of fear for 1 minute. All stats minus 50%. Effect, fatal wound. 15% chance to inflict more than double critical damage. The shadow minion beside Suho hovered in silence, its glowing eyes dimly reflecting the weapon's blue shimmer. It scoffed. A relic that drops power when facing those weaker than yourself. How petty, the sword spirit sneered. What hunter in this world aims for prey stronger than themselves? The sword's design gleamed ominously under the dungeon light, but beneath its brilliance, Suho could feel the weight of its judgment and its limits. The shattered fragments of a battle long concluded still littered the ground, glittering beneath the soft rays of sunlight. The young lord defeated you, who was relatively strong. Suho paused, his eyes flickering toward the cracked pavement beneath his feet. He murmured under his breath, the thought not quite finishing. A weary sigh escaped him. His life had gone from confusing to absurd in the blink of an eye. A talking bug, and now a talking sword. It's quite chaotic. The camera lingered on the destroyed dungeon gate, jagged and frozen in time. The silence that followed was brief. That evening, As the world outside remained oblivious, the internet began to stir. An article had been posted. Its headline reverberated across the screens of curious onlookers. An E-rank hunter single-handedly rescues trapped hunters from a dungeon. Eyewitnesses told of a figure who had charged headlong toward monsters when everyone else fled. A figure who defied logic, risked everything. A figure who shouldn't have been capable, but was. Photos of survivors filled the screen. Their eyes wide with disbelief, voices trembling with gratitude. Interviews followed, dozens, maybe hundreds, all pointing to the same truth. A nameless E-rank had stood against certain death and won. Meanwhile, far from the commotion, within the calm efficiency of the Hayama Guild's second management office, paperwork shuffled and coffee steamed in mugs. The atmosphere, sterile but alert. One manager scratched his temple thoughtfully. Isn't it about time we recruit a few more porters? Across the desks and glowing monitors, another nodded. Yes, the collection team's been clamoring for more personnel too. I think we need to hire a few more E-rank hunters. Leaning forward with a sly smile, the man known as Lee Young-ho, a member of the second management department, tapped his screen. I'll send you a candidate now. What do you think? Let's see. An E-rank hunter fought beasts in a D-rank dungeon while evacuating the mining team and brought out an injured attack team hunter from the dungeon. His voice slowed as he scrolled, eyes narrowing. The weight of the report began to settle. There was something strange, no, extraordinary about this hunter. And they had just stumbled across his file. The news had traveled fast. A murmur rippled through the brightly lit command center, disrupting the usual rhythm of reports and data logging. A man burst in, his voice raised in disbelief and, an E-rank hunter? The others gathered, leaning over the monitors as more details poured in. The realization hit like thunder. If their Hayama Guild managed to recruit this unknown yet powerful young hunter, it wouldn't just bolster their force. It would be a story, a beacon, a publicity coup that would ripple through every channel. A hero emerging from E-rank. Someone whispered, trailing their breath. The screen zoomed in on his file. Soho's face, calm yet resolute, stared back from the digital display. I'll contact him right away, came the decisive voice, fingers already in motion to initiate the call. And so, without knowing it, the young hunter who had leapt into a dungeon alone to save others had just stirred the attention of powers far larger than himself. The gears of fate were shifting, and Suho stood directly in their path. A hand slaps down on the desk with quiet urgency, the sound breaking the monotony of the office space. Inside Hayama Guild's second management department, tension brews as the question cuts through the air. Had there been any response from Hunter Sung Suho? The weight of expectation rests on the rookie. An E-rank hunter receiving an invitation from the renowned Hayama Guild was a rare honor, a dream come true for most. Naturally, they assumed he'd leap at the opportunity. But the reply they received left everyone stunned. He declined. Disbelief rippled through the office like a shockwave. One of the senior staff members froze, his voice thick with confusion. Declined? Their guild? The very idea felt absurd. Who was this rookie to turn down a major guild like theirs? He said he has no intention of joining any guilds. Came the reply, simple and unyielding. Another burst of frustration followed. A hunter in the field refusing to join a guild? Does he think he's an S-rank or something? They tried to brush it off, tried to convince themselves that he'd eventually come around. The world of hunters was harsh and unforgiving. Without a guild's backing, Suho would eventually feel the weight of reality. In the dim light of the office, one of the staff members let out a sigh, quiet but heavy. Disappointment hung in the air, mingling with lingering curiosity and unresolved intrigue. Elsewhere, Suho stood bathed in the warm hues of sunset, checking the stream of incoming messages on his device. Since returning from the dungeon, guild offers had poured in like rain. The small black insect-like companion hovered beside him, ever watchful. There are many places now coveting the young monarch's talent, it observed calmly. Suho scanned the notifications. Each offer proposed roles like collector or porter. None of them recognized the true strength he wielded. Still, it puzzled him. By the way, why are there so many contacts? The world was beginning to take notice. But for now, Suho remained outside the system, not yet bound to anyone's banner. Suho leaned back into the couch, arms resting casually on the armrests as the glow of the fading sun poured into the quiet room. The voice of his companion's sword lingered in the air, but his thoughts were fixed elsewhere. Joining a guild, he mused silently, might actually hinder his progress with the level-up system. The endless flood of offers now made sense, but none of them held what he truly needed. With a calm shake of his head, he dismissed the idea altogether. So there's really no need to join, he concluded aloud, brushing aside the distractions. His gaze drifted downward, to the weapon beside him. Anyway, his eyes narrowed, resolve returning. Shall we continue, Rockin's Fong? The sword's surface shimmered faintly, responding in kind. The next moment, darkness enveloped the vision. In his mind's eye, Suho gripped the weapon tightly as he stepped into a world shaped by the sword's will. The swirling mists parted to reveal a battlefield painted in twilight. His voice echoed with steel-like intent. How about it? Rockin's Fong pulsed. The voice from within rang deep and resonant, declaring with a surge of ancient pride, Shadow and Fong joined forces. The words carved through the dreamscape like prophecy. For a moment, the sword studied him in silence, as though taken aback by Suho's audacity. What kind of man so casually uttered such outlandish claims? And yet, something stirred within. The Fong had seen arrogance before, but not like this. If Shadow truly became an ally rather than an enemy, if that pact were real, the blade trembled slightly in his grip. A pause. Then, there's a condition. The mist around them deepened, ancient ruins rising like ghosts of the past behind the spectral form of the sword. Take me to another sanctuary of the Fong Lord. A pact was forming, but it would not come without a price. As Suho leaned back on the couch, his voice calmly pierced the air. So, do you know how to get to that sanctuary? He addressed the sword beside him, now more companion than tool. Its response was swift and unwavering. If it was the Fong Lord's sanctuary, it could find the location, no matter how far it may be. But there was a complication. The gate that once led to that sacred place had vanished. Likely a casualty of a dungeon break, a phenomenon born from the unstable balance between realms. Suho's eyes narrowed, absorbing this reality. So, the sanctuary had transformed into something else entirely. A field-type dungeon. In his mind, he recalled what that meant. Abandoned land overtaken by beasts after a dungeon break. A place once sealed, now desecrated, corrupted by monsters that poured through a gate long since disappeared. The weight of the moment didn't slow him down. Having left behind only a small note for his uncle, Suho stepped into the moonlit streets. Clad in black, with Shadow and Rockin's Fong at his side, he exuded quiet resolve. The blade rested across his shoulder like an extension of himself. Shall we visit the place where the sanctuary used to be? He asked, more to the air than to anyone else. In the dead of night, his journey brought him to a steel gate nestled beneath the looming outline of a dark mountain. Dense clouds veiled the moon, casting a dim bluish hue over the earth. Barbed wire and silence surrounded him. He stared ahead. Is this really the place? A faint hum buzzed in the silence, and the tiny shadow sprite floated to his shoulder. Yes, it replied. And so, at the gates of forgotten power, Suho stood ready to walk into the unknown. Before him stood the tall fence of a restricted zone, its warning sign boldly declaring, "Unauthorized access forbidden, Hyena Guild territory." Suho narrowed his eyes as the barbed wire glistened under the moonlight. Of all the places for a sanctuary to be, it had to be one guarded by a hunter guild. A problem indeed, and not a minor one. The Hyena Guild wasn't just any guild. It was known for its unruly composition, formed from former gangsters and lowlifes turned hunters. Their reputation was steeped in brutality, intimidation, and a complete disregard for restraint. Entering this place without permission would be illegal and dangerous. But such things didn't sway Suho. Beside him, the shadow spirit hovered, disapproving. Its voice was calm but firm, reminding Suho that wasting time on insignificant people wasn't the way forward. Strength should be his focus. Power. Progress. Yet Suho ignored the warning. His gaze was steady. His voice is sharper. "What are you doing?" the spirit asked as his hands began to crackle with lightning energy. Preparing to enter, he replied coldly, as azure light swirled across his palm, illuminating the darkness. "There's always a way." Without hesitation, he raised his fist, power surging like a tidal wave. A single punch, swift and ruthless, struck the security camera with devastating force. The machinery shattered under the impact, sparks bursting in all directions as the barrier of control was wiped away in an instant. He didn't need permission. He was the storm knocking. The shattered remnants of the security camera sparked and hissed as Suho stepped silently beyond the broken gate. Electric arcs danced briefly before dying out, erasing all traces of their entrance. His companion's glowing eyes blinked in approval, the small shadow creature murmuring how his decisive methods reminded it of the Lord himself. Unhesitating, efficient, precise. His boots pressed softly into the dirt path, absorbed by the thick mist curling at his feet. The moment he crossed the boundary into the field-type dungeon, a heavy silence draped itself across the forest, broken only by distant rustling leaves. Shadows shifted unnaturally. The air hung thick, unnaturally damp with power. He paused. Is it usually this misty in a field-type dungeon? Suho asked, his eyes narrowing at the swirling blue fog that clung to every surface like a second skin. The shadow responded solemnly. This mist is not of this world. It is the magic of the outer realm. A rift breached the dimensional barrier. The sanctuary was forcibly anchored to earth through it. Suho's gaze hardened. If the dimensional veil was torn, then something far worse than beasts might spill through. The outer realm beings, the shadow continued, seek to carve a massive gate to send their legions. The stronger the creature, the more it's affected by dimensional shifts. Like me, images flashed through Suho's mind, an unstoppable tide of monsters slipping through the cracks. But it wasn't happening yet. Not fully. So that means it'll take time before anything powerful makes it here, right? He asked, almost to himself. The shadow didn't answer, but Suho was already moving. Then, he whispered as the first rustling grew louder, closer, and more feral. I'd better level up quickly, right? The forest split open in front of him, revealing the snarling masses. Beasts with burning crimson eyes, jaws unhinged, and limbs twitching with frenzied hunger. They surged forward like a black tide, every step echoing the beat of a war drum. The jungle air ripples with a haunting pressure as monstrous figures descend into view. At the forefront, a towering beast snarls with gnarled fangs and blazing crimson eyes. Blade Claw Brigga. Its growl echoes like a war drum across the trees, primal and resonant. Another one steps forward, its own demonic aura radiating menace. It's time to show the power of this form. Below them, unwavering in the face of such dread, Suho tightens his grip around Raken's fang. The blade pulses with blue electricity, resonating with raw potential. His posture relaxes, a calm breath drawn in as if this chaos were routine. Oh, that's reassuring, he murmurs, letting his weapon hang for a beat. But then, casually, deliberately, he surprises even his companion. I won't use you as my main weapon. The monsters reel for a moment, their confusion evident. What? Suho steps forward, the rhythm of battle already forming in his mind. His voice is calm, assured. I've already planned out the combat methods I'll use in the future. He dashes in. His body glides like a phantom between strikes, drawing from the lessons burned into him during the tutorial. Familiar fighting techniques form his foundation, fluid, economical, efficient. Each movement flows into the next with the precision of a master tactician, his fists and legs striking with devastating speed. Support with long-range capabilities through the powers of the sovereign, he thinks. From his side, a surge of light erupts, a weapon is summoned, different from the one before. His pace never slows. Mix weapons to introduce variations. Lightning arcs, metal spins, and dark monsters are flung across the forest as Suho slashes through the battlefield like a storm given human shape. Use skill, storm slash. And just like that, the once overwhelming monsters are swept into the whirlwind of annihilation. Electric blue arcs of power coiled tightly around Suho's fingers, the resonance of his mana syncing perfectly with his growing strength. Equip acquisition using shadow extraction as well. This is my new combat method. The shadows hissed and swirled, pulsing with vigor around his figure. His stance was firm, eyes locked onto the beasts in front of him. The aura he radiated was no longer that of a mere rookie hunter. It was the calculated, unshakable presence of someone wielding ancestral power. Baru, the faithful shadow insect, hovered in awe. This is really impressive, young monarch. He murmured with reverence, his eyes drawn to the summoned weapon. This is the power held by the bloodline of the Shadow Lord. Below them, the battlefield was just beginning to churn. The more opponents there are, Baru reflected, his voice echoing like prophecy. The longer the fight goes on, the stronger I become by using the undead. Suho surged forward, slashing through another wave of creatures. His sword, now humming with layered strength, made each motion an execution of elegance and dominance. That's why we can't help but lose in wars, Baru admitted bitterly, watching the terrifying efficiency unfold. Dark shadows writhed around Suho as more creatures rose at his feet, black figures, monstrous in shape yet obedient in gaze. Thanks to the increase in my intelligence stat, Suho assessed, I can now control 5 shadow soldiers. The beast growled beside him, unified in formation, poised to strike at his command. Baru, still caught between admiration and jealousy, muttered, compared to the millions of soldiers of the Great Lord, it's so insignificant. Suho shot him a look and snapped, be quiet. A gust of wind carried the lingering tension away, the night trembling with anticipation. Overhead, the forest canopy stirred ominously, the sky itself quaking as if it, too, sensed the storm about to erupt from the ground below. The moonlight filtered faintly through the drifting clouds as Suho stood silently amidst the tall brush. Beside him, his glowing blade pulsed with spectral energy, casting eerie shadows that danced across his calm expression. His eyes were locked onto the clearing ahead. This was the place, the exact location where the gate to the sanctuary once existed. Now, the ground bore only the remnants of a secured site, fences, floodlights, and rows of temporary buildings tucked within an industrial compound. Perched just above the tree line, Suho surveyed the area, his gaze sharp. Below, 2 men walked past a fire barrel, their casual conversation floating into the air. They looked relaxed, but the hour was late. Suho furrowed his brow. This is a problem. It's surprising that people are still here at this hour, he thought, eyeing them with growing suspicion. Their presence didn't match the normal behavior of exhausted workers finishing a shift. There was something off, something deliberate in their movements. The shadow spirit at his side observed coolly. They are really hard-working individuals, it commented in a low voice, laced with irony. Suho narrowed his eyes. But is there a reason for staying out so late? The thought formed silently, his instincts alerting him to something more. It seems better to hunt monsters during the day. Suddenly, activity stirred in the compound. Crates clattered, flashlights beamed across the clearing, and trucks began to roll. A group of armed figures emerged, men wearing tactical gear, their bodies alert and primed for confrontation. Suho's breath caught. He dipped low into the brush, his gaze fixating on the scene below. From the firelight and the truck's backlit cargo, he could see them clearly now. Dozens of men moving as if executing a coordinated operation. Their hardened postures weren't those of casual workers. They were something else entirely. And then he saw it. His expression twisted with shock and urgency. The man gasped, voice trembling as he stepped back in alarm. Whatever he saw, it wasn't just a shadow in the woods. It was something or someone they weren't prepared to deal with. And the storm was only just beginning. The air grows heavier as Suho narrows his gaze, the unsettling sight below sharpening his focus. One man leers at a frightened woman, gripping her face with cruelty, his smile twisted with malice. The flames from a nearby barrel cast flickering shadows on his face, accentuating the evil etched into every smirk. From the foliage above, Suho observes, his expression hardening. He turns to Baru with quiet urgency. Baru, am I seeing a kidnapping scene? The shadow responds without hesitation, its tone low and grim. It seems so, Baru's voice follows, edged with concern. Lord, we are currently in a situation of illegal entry, so it would be better to avoid taking action unless necessary. If we get caught for illegal entry here, our hunter authority, but Suho is already gone. A streak of blue lightning slices through the night. From the edge of the forest, Baru watches as the glowing sword remains impaled in the earth. His eye widens. He already started. There's no hesitation, no delay. Suho moves with the clarity of someone who's made his decision before the question was even asked. In the flames of memory, 2 shadows stand tall behind him, his father, a relentless detective, his grandfather, a firefighter of legend. Heroes forged by duty, not power. Suho, now 21, grew up in the long shadows of their backs, molded by their strength and unwavering resolve. And now, their legacy lives through him. As the man grabs the woman roughly by the arm, Suho drops from the sky like a hammer of justice. A brutal blow crashes down. The attacker's head snaps back with a sickening force, and time itself seems to jolt. Gasps ripple through the crowd below, but Suho doesn't wait. From the darkness above, he descends like a judgment, a blue meteor in human form. The last image captured in the attacker's eyes is a storm-born glare, electric with fury and purpose. Because for Suho, when injustice rises, his body always moves first. Chapter end here. For more, like, share, and subscribe.